Hi and welcome to the TOTECS e-commerce platform. In the 18.2 TOTECS e-commerce platform release, for every project on the platform, a new data import named the Customer Account Contacts Connector Data Import has been created that can import a list of contacts assigned to each customer account, as well as deactivate contact records that are no longer being imported. Additionally, the data import can optionally create new users for each customer account contact record and link that contact record to each new user. This allows multiple people associated with each customer account in connected business systems to have a user automatically created for them. If the contact is removed from the connected system, then the data import can optionally deactivate the user who's linked to the contact record. This allows a list of users and contacts to be kept up to date and be managed within one location from an external business system, reducing the administration and making it easier for management staff to have users automatically be created and deactivated based on being tied to the connected business system's customer accounts features. It can also be used to automate both creating users and setting the passwords and default data for those users when they're first created. This can reduce the need for administrator users to manually create users when multiple people are assigned to a single customer account. To see how this works within the demonstration project we have here on the TOTECS e-commerce platform, if we click into the users navigation menu and then click on customer accounts, within the customer accounts interface, there's now an additional column that exists for each customer account called contacts. If we click on the contacts button, this will now show a list of contact records representing people associated with that particular customer account. For each of these customer account contact records, we've got the names of the person, their email address, the organization that they may be linked to, as well as if a contact record is linked to a user within the platform. And if they are, then we can click on the login ID of that user to go then straight to the user and view their details, skipping the need to go to the user interface and go into the search users first to find that user. Additionally, we can see when the contact record was last updated and whether or not that particular contact is the primary contact of a customer account. So in this case, John Citizen is the primary contact. And all these other people are secondary contacts, such as if John's not available, then you may wish to contact these other people to deal with this particular account. In order to get the contact records assigned against the customer account, we need to go into the data imports interface by clicking on the data navigation menu button, then click on data imports. Within the data imports interface, if we click on the connector imports tab and scroll down to the list of connector data imports, there's a new import called customer account contacts. This is the data import that will call the connector, from where the connector then needs to run its customer account contacts data export in order to export the data from a connected business system or a spreadsheet or any data source that's hosting these contact information and to import it in. So in our example here, we have a connector set up that is connecting to MYOB Acumatica, and this could be any business system. It doesn't have to be Acumatica, it could be Pronto XI, it could be Micronet Distribution, or any other software that hold contacts. It could be CRM software, among many others. In our example here in MYOB Acumatica, we have our customer. So in this case, it's called Example Proprietary Limited. And our customer, besides having general details about the customer account itself, in Acumatica, we have a separate contacts tab where we can then add a list of contacts, particular customer account. So in our example here, we have 3 contacts of the people who are assigned to this customer account. One of them, which is the primary person, we can set their email addresses, phone numbers, their job titles, and their contact information. So with the data set up and our connector configured to export the data from MYOB Acumatica, within the data imports interface, if we select the customer account contacts data import and click the start imports button, it would now run that data import. And if we then go back into the customer accounts interface, our example proprietary limited customer account here, we click on the contacts, we can now see the 3 contacts have now been imported against this account. Now within data import, there's a couple of settings that we've got available here. The first setting we have is called create users for new contacts. So when it imports the contact records, we have a choice whether or not it should automatically create users for each of those new contact records being imported. If that is not selected, then the users will not automatically get created against the contacts. So if that is the case, then we'll see that there is no user's login ID that would appear here against the contact. You may not want to allow users to be automatically created if you're just using this as an administration feature in order for administrator users users to be able to look up the contacts within the admin center and access the data there only. In this case, we do want to create users for new contact records. If you tick this option, but the contacts have already been imported, then it will not automatically try to recreate users for these contact records. It's only the first time a contact record gets imported when the user will be attempted to be created. In this example, we would still have to manually create a user record for the John Smith contact here, since that record has now already been imported. The other option we have is to deactivate the users if they're assigned to deactivated contacts. In this example, we can deactivate contact records within MYB Acumatica. So if we changed a contact to inactive and then we imported the records again, after running the data import, if we go back to the customer accounts interface and we went into the user that is created against this Citizen Lee user, you can now see that that user is no longer active. So this is a way within our connected business system we can control the active state of both the contact records and the users linked to those contact records that is occurring within our TOTECS project. If we did not want that behavior and we still wanted those users to be active regardless of whatever the status of their contact record is, then we would turn this setting off, and that would ensure that the user's active status always stays on regardless of the contact record that user may be associated to. So typically, if you're managing contact records and you want to manage the users from within a connected business system, you would leave these two settings checked on, but there may be circumstances within your own business where you do not want this kind of default behavior. Now, the last aspect we need to look at is how the passwords of the users when they're being created from these contact records. If we click on the users navigation menu, then click into the general user settings menu item, there are two new settings that have been created. We have a setting called new user auto creation login ID format and new user creation password format. So within this editor, this is where we get to use the different pieces of information available against each of our contact records in order to determine how the user's login ID is created. In our example here, our customer account code is called EXA MPL001, and in the user's login ID, we can also see that the customer account code is also in the user's login ID, but then we're putting a dash and then we've got these numbers here. And if we look in the settings here, what we're doing is we're getting the customer account code, which we've seen before. We're putting a dash as a delimiter, and then we're putting the key contact ID. So that's the unique identifier of each contact record coming from our connected business system or in our connected data source. And so for each of these contact records, they have the IDs of 1, 2, and 3. So this could be coming out of MYB Acumatica. That's the unique IDs for those contact records. So we're appending the unique identifier of the contact record to the customer account code that these contact records are associated to create a unique login ID for the user. If we didn't want to use the key contact ID, we could use the name. If we wanted the person's name to be in the login ID, we could use the mobile phone number of the user. And if every phone number was unique, we could just use the mobile number as the login ID of the user, or we could use the organization ID. So we can append multiple pieces of information here to make up the user's login ID. But just note there are limits on how many characters can appear in a login ID. I believe it's 50. And we want the login IDs to be unique. So it doesn't make sense to put the account code and name one data field only, because you could have two people in the world belonging to the one organization called John Smith. And if that is the case, then we would not have a unique login ID. If that is the case, the data import will not create a user if it cannot guarantee that user would have a unique login ID. So if we just use the customer account code and we left no other suffix in the login ID, then when the customer account contacts data import runs, only for the first contact record that it finds against the customer account will it create the user's login ID for, because if it tries to do again for the second and third, it's already created one user that has a login ID of the customer account code, and it will not allow duplicates. It is important when we set up the login ID format that we ensure uniqueness in order to allow user records to be created against each customer account contact record. And we can play with the data that is available from the contact records here to make up the login ID. The other setting we have here is the new user auto creation password format. This is very similar, but this is how we control how the password by default is getting created for each of these users associated to the contact records. In this example, password of these users being created for the contacts will have the customer account code, and then they'll have this thing called an auth code or an authorization code. So the user's password would be EXAMPL0001, but then we're getting this auth code either from the ERP system, or this could be a code that is being generated within the connector itself that is feeding the data that is more unique. So the auth code could be some kind of password that we may be setting in within our business system. It could be a random assorted characters and letters, or it could be a fixed code for that particular month. That could be May 2026 could be the auth code because that's when the user gets created. This is a configurable data field that we have in the connector, or that could be available in business systems to try to generate and make a password unique and not easy to guess for the users. So it's up to each administrator on the platform to work out what is the best way to set a password that is unique and not too easy for other people to work out. And we can use other pieces of information, just like we did with the login IDs, in order to make up a user's password. So we could put their first name into the password. We could put the unique contact record into their password. We may want to put some hyphens, or we could put some special characters into it. It is really up to you to work out what is the best format to make these passwords strong enough, but easy enough to manage as well when you're giving out the login details to these new contacts to allow them to log in for the first time before them being able to change their passwords. And you'll note that when these users are created, by default, the password expired data field will be checked to make sure that when they log into any content managed website, that they will then update and set their own passwords to make it hard for anybody else to guess them and act as those users. There's the new capabilities that we have in order to import customer account contacts into a project from using the connected software that may be connected to any business system software that is managing a list of contacts for each customer account, and have for each of those contact records optionally be linked to users that are created and deactivated as they get managed within any connected business system. Ultimately, this can help reduce the amount of effort required in order to set up new users that are linked to new customers as they are defined within a business. This can be a great time saver for administrators when doing this user and customer management work. If you wish to find out more information about this functionality and all the other great functionality in the TOTECS 18.02 platform release, if you go to the TOTECS.au website, click on the resources menu item and go into the forums menu item. Within the TOTECS e-commerce platform releases forum, if you click on the TOTECS platform release 18.2, you can find more information about the release, as well as the information about how this functionality demonstrated today works, and all the other great functionality that is within the same release. If you required help or assistance configuring the connector to set up your customer account contacts data exports, or for any other inquiries, please don't hesitate to contact our TOTECS service team, or you can comment within the forums here. Till next time, have a good one.